Alf, sports cards are expensive. I think that we can all agree on that, but I found a pocket. I found a pocket that I thought was really interesting. I want to talk through this, obviously get comments from viewership on their thoughts. This will be an interesting one and maybe kind of surprising to some folks coming from me. Stick around. What's going on, Sports Card Hobby family? It's another day. We're kicking off another week here at the Sports Card Dad Station episode, radio station, video station, whatever the heck this thing is. Thank you very much for joining us. I hope the new year has brought you good fortune as we kick off 2025. Before I dive in, huge thanks to today's video sponsor, COMC.com. 40 million cards in the database, football, baseball, basketball, non-sports, e-pack stuff, grading, moving stuff off to auction. There's so many different ways to participate in the hobby on COMC. It is the place to be. Check out my links down below to take you there and get your journey started. Also, if you've never subbed with PSA, $25 off your first submission, one card minimum. One card, that's it. SCD 25 at the shipping and billing screen will get you $25 off that first submission. Check them out. All right, so much of the energy and a lot of the content around sports cards is focused around new product. We are in an absolute boom time for sports cards, really trading cards in general, but especially new product for sports cards. And I'll give credit really to the Fanatics Topps marketing machine, using social media, using various ways to really get hype around hit cards, new product, and so forth. I mean, even products that are a little bit lackluster as far as design and everything, there's always some sort of chase. They've done a good job of varying in different levels of chase, and man, people are in on it. Whether people are opening new products themselves, getting into breaks, getting into razzes, whatever it is, the carnival games are on fire. You just saw it at the last National going back to Cleveland, Ohio. You had half of the thing was all of the collectors and all of the singles buyers and that sort of a thing. And the other half was the fair. It was all the rides. What's that ride where you're riding it and it's like you stick to the wall? The giant, I can't remember what it's called. But they had all the shoot the baskets for packs, all sorts of stuff over there at the National. You could argue that a lot of the excitement, as far as just kind of the entertainment value, was over there on the gambling side for obvious reasons. And people want to see what happens. You know, people, even if they're not participating, they're like, oh my God, is this guy going to pull anything? Is there going to be a big hit out of this or that? There's a lot of excitement around the stuff. The problem is that with new product, we know this, and this is really across the board, and this is nothing new to anybody. If you are just somebody that spends a lot of money opening up new product, it's typically a losing proposition. If you're just opening up box, you're getting into a lot of breaks, you're getting into razzes. You might win sometimes, but just like with the carnival, the fair, the odds are stacked way against you in these sorts of things. And that's why I always preach the singles market. It just makes total sense for me, but I'm not a big gambler and that doesn't excite me. I don't get that gambling rush. I know a lot of people do and nothing against it. If that is your cup of tea, then absolutely. There are a lot of people in the space that do love that side. But I was taking a look on Market Movers, some of the kind of the featured charts that they were showing. And I was really just curious because I'm trying to figure out where is there some value? Where has there been growth, crazy growth, and where does it feel like stuff might be underpriced? Now, nobody can see the future. Nobody knows what's going to happen with prices, but the deepest collecting space in our entire hobby, the deepest collecting space is the vintage baseball card crew. And you could argue vintage cards as a whole, but really the truth is that it's vintage baseball card collectors. Yes, of course, there's vintage football and vintage basketball and hockey and all sorts there's a variety, but vintage baseball really is kind of where the whole thing started. And so they have always made up the bulk of the collectors in the space, and they still do. Now, when I look at prices for a lot of the vintage cards, if I look at Market Movers, they've got about 90-ish cards, and they're not looking at commons. You know, they're looking at Nolan Ryan rookie or Jackie Robinson cards or whatever it might be. And I kind of stacked up two of the indexes from 1940 to 1979, or baseball cards. And the one thing that I noticed is, yeah, you've got some bumps up, you've got some bumps down. It's fairly flat, maybe slightly up. If we're going a year ago, we're looking at this time 2024 to this time 2025 using those like 90-ish cards. Granted, there's a heck of a lot more baseball cards out there from 40 to 79. The numbers could be skewed all over the place, so take this with a grain of salt. But what I did notice is that there's important cards, frankly, from that era that are down some. There's some that are up a little bit. It's not a highly volatile market, which maybe makes it boring for, flippers that are trying to come in and kind of buy and sell. There's not a lot of velocity there to where you can, it's down 20% today, but it's up 50% tomorrow and we can make money on it like a new quarterback maybe. And so this collecting base remains very popular and prices are pretty stable. It's a market that has figured itself out. It's not something where the market doesn't know where it is, so you have all sorts of fluctuation. Really, the only fluctuation when you're looking at these cards is just based on eye appeal. You might have a PSA 3 of a specific card, and one might go for $500 or $1,000 more than another 3, and you're like, why did this happen? And maybe it's centering, surface, registration. There's something about one card over the other. Somebody paid a premium for that particular eye appeal. It happens all the time in vintage cards. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder with vintage cards. It's all about which card fits your collection the best, which is the one that you like. Maybe you like sharp corners. Maybe you like a really clear registration picture. Maybe you want centering. A lot of people are all about centering. I'm one of those people. For me, when I'm looking at a vintage card, I really like centering and surface are really kind of what I'm prioritizing. I don't care if the damn thing looks like an Uno card with rounded corners. I don't want sharp corners on my vintage cards. Frankly, I can't afford if it's an 8, 9, 10 for a lot of these cards anyway. But I think really where the opportunity lies, and it's actually where I'm looking now. I'm specifically looking for a 52 Topps Willie Mays 1 and a 1. And another card on the list is a 53 Topps. I just love this card aesthetically, how it looks. The 53 Topps Mays in a 3. And I think really the opportunity, and again, I'm just one guy speaking. I'm just one idiot out here on the internet. I probably don't know anything about anything. Buy what you want, collect all the things you want, not financial advice and all that stuff. But when I look at just the trading card hobby as a whole, it's never been more popular ever. And so much focus is on the new product, but not as much excitement from the newcomers for the classic iconic cards like this. Like those two cards I just mentioned, 52 Topps, 53 Topps Mays, are important cards in the hobby. You can make an argument that those are top 10 vintage baseball cards post-war. Those two cards, and really if you look at the price points, the 53 Topps PSA 3 Mays that I'm looking at, it's anywhere between maybe $1,800 on the low side up to about $3,000. Again, depending on eye appeal. The 3, it can have issues, so kind of figuring out which one you want. But my God, that's a drop in the bucket. $2,000, that's two 2024 Prism Hobby Box football boxes. $2,000 in the sports card hobby on the modern side, you can just fly, like it flies out of your wallet. There's all sorts of what you might consider value, and I'm going to get even more specific. I'm going to make a couple of nuances to this argument that I'm making here. I think there's going to be a lot more focus around in the future for kind of these lower grade vintage cards. The worry with vintage cards is that they've been messed with. They've been trimmed, they've been colored, they've been cleaned up, they've been dunked and soaked. You never really know. And so for me, I just mentioned it. I don't mind rounded corners on my vintage cards. I want to know that it doesn't have like a really straight edge, a couple really nice edges and corners. Like I don't care about that. And so nice looking lower grade versions of these cards, it doesn't necessarily take away all of the risk, but it takes away some of the risk. And even though vintage cards, a lot of these 50s baseball cards are fairly abundant, you go to the National and I've talked about this in the past, you find out quickly these cards are not rare necessarily, but if you compare that to a lot of the ultra modern cards, they're not rare either, but there's only one or maybe a couple of versions. If you're looking at kind of these 50 sets, 60 sets, there might be the kind of the base card and maybe there's kind of an insert tied in with some of these sets. There's not a lot of variation of the cards. Whereas, of course, you look at 2020's, cards, not only do you have, the parallels, you've got the inserts, you have all the different colors of the rainbow. From a value standpoint, just, okay, if I'm putting my money somewhere, and again, I'm not looking for the 5X, 10X overnight stuff, but just where's a store of value that I can really enjoy and appreciate. And for me, I'm not the biggest baseball guy. I'm a football, basketball guy. Baseball is not a sport that I watch every year. I don't get in on the first Bowmans and all that sort of a thing. But I can appreciate, just like with a lot of vintage baseball card collectors, the historical relevance of these cards. And I like the idea of owning cards that are in this world, that are in kind of the beginnings. You know, it's the origin story of card collecting. Last part of this is, I think there's also going to be consolidation over time, not necessarily from like third tier Hall of Famers. Again, I'm not a baseball Hall of Fame expert, but when I watch people, I listen to the baseball folks. All I keep hearing more and more of, and I'm one of those guys that thinks that Barry Bonds should be in the Hall of Fame. I know, now there's tomatoes being thrown at me. But I hear more and more that the Baseball Hall of Fame is a joke, you know, and in the future generations, they're just not going to care as much. You know, the fact that Harold Baines is in, but Barry Bonds is not, you know, and there's a lot of different examples of this. And so when I'm thinking about second tier, third tier, fourth tier, maybe Hall of Fame players, I just think eventually there's going to be consolidation up into the Willie Mays and the Mantles. I feel like that's already kind of happened, but maybe even more so. And maybe that is part of the reason why Mantle holders, of course, maybe they love Mickey Mantle. They've got a direct connection to Mantle, but they also feel like, hey, this is fairly safe in my eyes, just because, you know, people are going to continue to kind of move out of, you know, Harmon Killebrew and maybe go into a Mickey Mantle card over time. Will these next generations even know who these guys are? Robin Yount, you know, or some of these guys that were awesome. You know, Mike Schmidt. I love Mike Schmidt. That was a guy kind of in the 80s. You're all about Mike Schmidt. But in the future, are these guys going to be appreciated in the same way? And I've always said on this channel, I want to collect cool things, but I do care about store value. I want to collect things that hopefully at least hold value, maybe increase incrementally over time. That is fun collecting for me. Fun collecting for me is not opening up a $1,000 box of cards and getting $100 of value out of it just so I can maybe, hopefully, get a hit card, a chase card that's numbered out of $2.99 along with all the other parallels or whatever. That's just not my game. Maybe that'll change in the future, but right now I'm looking at vintage baseball. But over the last year since I've been back into the collectible space, value is important to me. I'm not a zillionaire. I don't have money, and frankly, I just don't think it's smart money just to blow money on new hobby boxes. But that's just me. That's just me. Friends, let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. Stay healthy, stay awesome, and I will talk to you again later.